Welcome to Trident Astrology. I'm Janine Kane. Today I'm going to be going over the November weekly forecast for the 16th through the 22nd. The astrological themes for this week include psychological integration, introspection, and evaluating our principles and values, in particular in relationship to ourselves and our relationships. What I'm going to be covering this week is the Mercury-Uranus opposition going exact on the 17th. I'll be looking at Venus-Saturn Square, forming a T-square with Eris, Venus, and the outer planets. And I'll be also covering the 21st with the Venus entering into Scorpio and the Sun-Moon waxing square in Pisces and Sagittarius. Now, if anybody's interested in totally geeking out on astrological detail, I have this forecast in written form with a link down in the description below. Also, I indexed this forecast with timestamps in the description within a day-to-day format, so it makes it easier to navigate. Okay, so let's get started. On Tuesday, November 17th, we have Mercury and Uranus opposition going exact at 8 degrees of Scorpio and Taurus. Now we're hearkening back to the energy of October 7th and the 19th when Mercury-Uranus opposition were exact at that time. And this is a very gorgeous opposition for several reasons. First, Mercury is an ectopsychic planet. It is our ability to perceive reality in the domain of the five senses, the domain of space and time, the realm of the phenomenal, or the explicit, as Dr. Bohm would like to call it. Now, Mercury acts as a psychopump and can bring forth information from the unconscious realm into the conscious realm. So a psychopump is the guide of the souls to the realm of the dead, or the noumenal realm, the unconscious realms. So second, Uranus is a higher octave of Mercury. It is the divine mind that exists at the threshold of consciousness. It is endopsychic. It's unconscious. It exists in the unconscious realms of our mind. Now, Uranus exists in the mysterium coniunctionis, the mysterious realm of irreconcilable opposites, taking residence at the threshold between the phenomenal and the noumenal realms, between the unconscious and the conscious realms. Now, Uranus here is the great gatekeeper of contradiction and paradox. The function of Uranus is the alchemical duality of opposites, the process of individuation, which is integrating unconscious material into consciousness in order to evolve the whole of the personality. Third, Mercury conveys wisdom imparted by Uranus and synthesizes the union of the pair of opposites in the quaternio, which leads into the world of the explicit, the realm of the phenomenal, from the threshold of consciousness. The quaternio is the explicit, phenomenal realm, the realm of the five senses, the realm of space and time. It's Jung's four functions. We'll go into that. Now, fourth, Mercury and Uranus are in opposition along the Taurus and Scorpio axis of being here, which symbolizes two domains of consciousness. The conscious domain, which is Taurus here, and the unconscious domain, Scorpio. Fifth, what is really divine about this configuration is that Mercury, the ectopsychic planet, is currently residing in Scorpio, the unconscious domain, the implicate domain, whereas Uranus, the endopsychic planet, is currently residing in Taurus, the conscious domain. The implicate and the explicate are divinely intertwined here, merging and interpolating in opposition, which is about integrating contradiction and paradox. So the image that best articulates this poetry of the symbolism in this opposition is the Vesica Pisces. So here is a diagram I created. It's basically an overlay of Carl Jung's structure of consciousness overlaying the Vesica Pisces. Now, the Vesica Pisces is a sacred mathematical shape that is formed by two disks of the same radius that are intersecting. And the Vesica Pisces overlays Carl Jung's structure of consciousness very well here, because Carl Jung's structure of consciousness has three main components. The first component is the ectopsychic realm. It's the realm of the five senses, it's space and time. It's also known as the phenomenal, the explicate, it's conscious, objective, the temporal. It is the realm of the quaternio. It's Jung's four functions. It's the four elements. The second part of Jung's structure of consciousness includes the endopsychic. It's the unconscious. It's noumenal. It's the implicate. It's subjective. It's atemporal. And this encompasses Jung's personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. The third component of the structure of Jung's structure of consciousness is the threshold of consciousness. And this middle space here in the Vesica Pisces represents this beautifully, because the threshold of consciousness is the interpolation of the phenomenal and the noumenal, the ectopsychic and the endopsychic. It is the mysterium conjunctionis, the conjunction of opposites. As we can see here, interpolate means to insert something of a different nature into something else. We see here that the ectopsychic and the endopsychic are interpolating. And this is the threshold of consciousness. And this is where Uranus resides. He also goes into the endopsychic and brings back information from there for Mercury, who is the ectopsychic planet, who then goes from the ectopsychic, because he's a psychopump. He can go into the realms of the noumenal. And he goes into the Mercury, the messenger, goes into the threshold of consciousness. And as advised by Uranus, he takes that information, brings it back into consciousness, where we can integrate unconscious material. So the evolutionary resolution here of Mercury-Uranus opposition is the interpolation of the phenomenal and noumenal realms. It's the integrating the paradox inherent in the human condition. Now, as we move into Aquarian energy next year, this opposition reminds us, both individually and collectively, how important it is to individuate. Finally, with Uranus's strong trine here to Vesta, the goddess of the sacred fire, we are inspired with Atma Victu, the breath of life, the spark of life, which is Vesta, as we delve deep into the underworlds for integration to find wholeness of our personality. This applies to both individual and the collective evolution. Okay, moving on. On Thursday, and let me pull up that chart, on Thursday, November 19th, Venus-Saturn Square goes exact at 27 degrees in Libra and Capricorn. Now, this is forming a T-square that is between Eris in Aries, opposing Venus in Libra, and it's squaring these outer planets here, Pluto, Jupiter, Pallas Athena, the Moon, and Saturn. So Venus here is about our values, ethics. It's about value judgments, determining what is right or wrong, what is good or bad. It is in the sign of Libra, which is about moderation, fairness, discernment, relatedness, compromise, and cooperation. Now, the shadow side of Venus in Libra can be submitting self to appease others, lacking boundaries, and it can also be tyrannical in position of order and harmony. Now, Saturn here, so here's Venus, and this is the square here to Saturn. Saturn is about discipline, structure, integrity, success, determination, and responsibility. It is in its home sign of Capricorn, which is restructuring and assessing the social structure and organizations, collective purpose, and scrutinizing the uprightness of our current social system in order to achieve integrity and success. The shadow side of Capricorn, of Saturn in Capricorn, is success at whatever cost and an arbitrary use of power. Now, the evolutionary challenge here with this Venus-Saturn square is to maintain consideration of the needs of others, to cooperate, to not lose sight of our values and relatedness in the process of collective achievement. Now, this square reminds us all to evaluate our principles and standards of behavior, to take serious, that's the Saturn there, look at what is important in our life. We have to take a serious look at what is important in our life so beneficial social change can occur. Now, this is forming a T-square, like I said, between Eris in Aries, Venus in Libra, squaring these outer planets. The moon is in Capricorn. So with the moon in Capricorn, our emotions may feel suppressed or controlled. This can be beneficial if it allows us to make decisions without heated emotional involvement. However, suppressing emotions can ricochet back with stronger force if we're avoiding dealing with our emotions. So the challenge here with this T-square, here, is to maintain level-headedness despite extreme turmoil and conflict. And that is the Eris and Aries there causing that turmoil and conflict there. Gaining some traction of resolution here will be beneficial when Venus enters into Scorpio on Saturday, which will be intensifying Venus's archetypal functions. Okay, moving forward to Saturday. Let me pull up that chart. Now on Saturday, we have several shifts occurring, and these include Venus entering into Scorpio, the Sun entering into Sagittarius, and the Moon-Sun waxing square in Pisces and Sagittarius. But let's take a look at the Venus entering into Scorpio first. So here we have Venus entering into Scorpio. Venus is moving from Yang, air, cardinal sign of Libra to the yin, water, and fixed sign of Scorpio. The constellations involved here are both social, collective archetypes. Collectively, this conveyance is about moving our attention from social cooperation to social integration. So in order to truly cooperate, work toward a common goal together, deep introspection is necessary to assess the integrity of the goal, to evaluate the principles forming the goal, and to gauge whether or not the goal is actually viable and beneficial for the group and the individual. Now, individually, this conveyance of Venus from Libra to Scorpio is moving our attention to working on your own psychological integration to benefit the group. It's also about assessing your principles and values in relationship to self, others, and making balanced value judgments about who you're making connections with so that your relationships align with your authentic self. All right, moving on now to the Moon-Sun waxing square in Pisces and Sagittarius. So as we can see here, the Moon and the Sun are in a waxing square, and where the sun is in Sagittarius and the moon here is in Pisces. Now, the waxing square phase of the moon is about the preparation for the eventual letting go of things no longer serving us that's going to occur at the full moon. So this is about evaluating your readiness to let go and acquiring clarity of purpose. Now, the sun in Sagittarius, let me point this here. This is the sun in Sagittarius. It's about developing yourself through the synthesizing of knowledge and wisdom. It is about identifying your philosophy and forming a coherent ethic. Now, the shadow side of the sun in Sagittarius is unfounded idealistic enthusiasm or identification with naive ideologues. The moon in Pisces brings forth depth of emotion from the endopsychic and unconscious realms, the realms of the shadow. There is a heightened intuition with this placement. There is a dreaminess, a spiritual connectedness, a sense of unity consciousness here. On the shadow side with the moon in Pisces, there may be a tendency for escapism or emotional confusion. So the challenge for growth here with this square between the moon and the sun, between the luminaries, is between clarity and confusion. So our ability to identify our philosophy and form a coherent ethic may be muddled by our emotions or some kind of disorientation. We may experience a sense of ungroundedness during this time. The solution here is to surrender to our inner processes of introspection. That's the Venus here in Scorpio trining the moon in Pisces. Now, we have to allow ourselves to be confused for a time. Sometimes we don't know or understand or have all the answers, and that's okay. Matter of fact, that's a very good thing. Here's a quote from Manoj Arora. I don't know if I'm saying that right. He says, "Doubts are good. Confusion is excellent. Questions are awesome. All these are attempts to expand the wisdom of the mind." And I thought this was a very fitting quote with this square with the sun and moon, the sun in Sagittarius and the Pisces moon. All right, future highlights for upcoming weekly forecasts. We have a lot going on next week, but mostly next week I'm going to be focusing on the Neptune direct, and we have a penumbral lunar eclipse full moon at 8 degrees of Gemini. So I look forward to forecasting that for you. I really appreciate you joining me for another Trident Astrology Weekly Forecast. And I really look forward to you joining me next week. Weekly forecasts will be posted on weekends for the week ahead. Blessings and love.